Welcome to the Alertus webinar series. My name is Jamie Underwood, Director of Marketing Communications at Alertus Technologies. Today's session will provide an overview of Alertus's outdoor emergency notification solutions. We ask that you please hold all questions to the end of the webinar. However, feel free to type any questions in the chat box during the presentation, and we'll be sure to come back to those during the Q&A at the end of the session. This webinar is being recorded, so please email marketing@alertus.com if you're interested in receiving video from today's webinar. I would now like to turn it over to today's webinar presenter, Alertus Technologies, John Dorney.
Thank you, Jamie. My name is John Dorney. I'm the product manager here at Alertus of the Outdoor Mass Notification Solutions. You may already be aware of some of Alertus's indoor solutions where we specialize in net-centric emergency communications. It's my job to go to help customers design their speaker systems through acoustic designs and some of the project engineering and the logistics of implementing the system. So what we're going to do today is quickly step through the process that we go through with the customers each time to determine the optimal placement of outdoor speakers, to determine the wattage of outdoor speakers, to determine, okay, how far can we send voice in this area, siren tones in this area. So those are some sort of the details we'll get into. Then Jermaine, one of our other territory managers, is going to do a demonstration of the software and do an activation of the system. There are several ways to set off the outdoor and indoor mass notification. And then lastly, we'll do some questioning. So basically, what does it look like? What does our outdoor high-power speaker arrays look like? These are a few different mounting options. Sometimes throughout the slides, you'll see HPSA. So that, again, that's the high-power speaker array. The wattage ranges anywhere from 300 to 2400 watts, depending on how the area we need to coverage, and then we have different sort of directions we'll mount them based on the acoustic designs. But you should have an idea with these pictures sort of what we can do for you. We can do building mounts, or we can mount to some an existing radio tower, existing structure, and say a refinery or some other industrial facility. I know we have a few people viewing today from some refineries, and also a pole mount as well, which is popular. But again, bottom left is 300 watts, 2 speakers. Each speaker is 150 watts, and then we have in the middle there the high power 2400 watt, and that's more of our citywide solution. Maybe it'll be a city that's in a tsunami zone, or potentially near a nuclear facility within the 10-mile cordon. We would use that sort of configuration. So one thing you might pick up right away is that in one of them they're pointed in one direction, another one they're pointing 180 degrees apart. So how does that work? Well, the configuration where the speakers are all pointed in one direction is called our F. The F configuration. And that creates sort of a teardrop acoustical pattern. It'll give you siren tone and clear voice. So approximately you can see there 55 decibels at about 2,000 meters. So of course that's your ideal. That's your theoretical distance. When we start putting other variables, other obstructions between the speaker and the listener, that starts to come down quite a bit, especially when we talk about buildings and trees and topographies and things like that. And that's when where our software model comes in. We use a software application where we put in all those variables. So you'll say, okay, John, here's our campus for our school or our municipality or whatever the area is, and these are our buildings, and this is where there's high decibel noise. I was recently at a refinery where they had 95 dB plus noises. And we put all these variables into the software application, come up with an acoustic design for you to optimally place each of these speakers. You can't just put them anywhere, based on you can't put them anywhere. There are limited places you can put them to make sure you get the best coverage. Now you'll notice in this one, the speakers are 180 degrees apart, but it creates an elliptical acoustic pattern. So you'll see there as well 1,500 meters out, up to 2,000 meters out in this configuration, and you'll be able to cover a whole, sometimes an entire campus I can cover with just this wattage. It's rare. Usually you'll have some building attenuations, but if it's a flat campus with low buildings, we can do just the one 1200 watt unit. But so again, the steps that we follow are the customer will give us the area they'd like covered. We'll take into account all the building heights and different variables, putting into our software model, and then we'll give you the a design basically back. And then usually that's the first iteration. So we'll come back to you, and then maybe someone on your committee will say, well, you know, this is great. However, the building you're trying to put that on is actually a historical building, and we have some historical concerns, so we need to move that speaker. So we'll move that speaker, we'll move another one to sort of accommodate, and then someone else will say, well, you know, that building is going to get torn down in 2 years. So we sort of have this iterative process, and we usually finalize on maybe the 5th or 6th design, and can come up with something that everyone's happy with. So it's a definite process, but usually at the end we have a good design and a happy customer. So let me just dive down a little bit into the system electrically. You know, how does the system work technically? Well, first, the speakers are aluminum speakers. Basically, they're very tough. You can drop them, hit them with a hammer. These things are going to last for a long time. When we were bringing our outdoor high-power speaker array solution out to a market, we tested probably a dozen different types of speakers and different options, and some of them would get dinged very easily in shipping, and they would sort of over time they would sort of some of the components inside would rust. So we really feel that this is really the best of breed, best in the market solution as far as speaker arrays. Each one is 150 watts. So what you're looking at there is 8 speakers. So that's 1,200 watts. Again, it can go up to 2,400 watts. Now the system is also zonable. So say you have a half a dozen of these around your campus or refinery or facility. You can just set off 1 or 2 or 3 or all of them based on the emergency. Sometimes we had a refinery that we were talking to recently that had to shut down the entire facility, and they looked as an after incident report. They realized that they really didn't need to shut down the entire facility. They really just need to shut down a section of it, and they would have saved literally millions of dollars if they had just sort of just went this route. So that's a really powerful feature. It's weather-tight system. It produces both siren tones and clear voice, which I think is a great feature. If you have sort of a tornado or a tsunami siren or something like that of those sorts, it's okay to have just a siren tone, because you know when you're on the beach, okay, that's a tsunami, or you know that this is a tornado. But when you come to military bases and colleges and maybe an industrial facility, I think that voice component is really important. So you'll hear a siren tone followed by the message. The message may say, there is a shooter on campus. Okay, so that's the message. And then the second component of it is, okay, what should I do? Well, you should seek shelter immediately. So there'll be a siren tone. The message will enunciate, there is a shooter on campus. Seek shelter immediately. And then we can repeat this several times until a cancel is sent, or until a new message is sent, or until we have it timed out. That's all configurable. Also, we have within the local control cabinet, you can go to the cabinet and use it locally and set it off locally there if you choose to. Just an additional feature for redundancy. Usually the customer uses the graphical user interface to activate the system. The system is constantly monitored. I think that's super important. You can go to sort of, actually you can't go to Radio Shack anymore, but you used to be able to go to Radio Shack and sort of buy these cheap speakers and stick them around, and that was it. But you never knew if they were up or down, and it's just so important. One of the biggest differentiators between a PA system and an emergency communication system is that constant system monitoring. Our system is constantly looking at the speaker. Is the speaker constantly up? The system is battery backup, so are the batteries okay? Is the power supply okay? Are each of the controller components okay? And it's continually running this loop, looking at it, and if there's a fault, it throws it back to the Alertus server application, and then you're notified immediately. So however you configure the system, you can have it just go to the system administrator. Maybe have the email or a pop-up go up over a computer alert go up to say whoever your assigned maintainer is. We could even get the notice ourselves. So that's another powerful feature, the fact that your system's constantly being monitored. I briefly mentioned battery backup. Again, two 12-volt batteries inside, so the system can sit with battery backup if it loses power for quite some time. I think the last key point here in our features is really one of the most important features of our system, and what you're going to see, what Jermaine is going to show you in the demo, and what hopefully you may already know is one of the biggest strengths of the Alertus system is the fact that we're sending a unified message across multiple systems, different modalities. So when that system activates indoors across our alerting beacons, across text-to-speech speakers, across digital displays, across computer pop-ups, across mobile devices, you're getting the exact same message. There's no ambiguity. It's very clear what the emergency is. And now with the outdoor high-power speaker arrays, we're bringing that message out to the open door areas, to the quads in the schools, to the playing fields, to the other areas. So, and I can't stress enough how important it is that it's just that one message to everyone. Whereas, let's say in the past, someone would get on a microphone on a live PA and give the PA, and then someone would type in a message, and the wording might be close, but it might be off a little bit. And we've all played that telephone game where sort of you pass one message on to the next person, all of a sudden there's confusion. So I can't stress enough how powerful that feature is. So basically, how do we install the system? This is our basic configuration. We prefer to put our speakers on the roof and all our electronics indoors. Of course, we can put all the electronics outdoors if we have to. However, this is the preferred set. So before Jermaine does the demo, I'm going to quickly show you a project that we're finishing up right now at a school, actually. And I took a quick video of the outdoor system, so I think you can get an idea of how it sounds. So we're just going to switch over here right to the video, and this is I think a good example of the coverage area. And this is about 150 meters, by the way, out away from the speaker. If you look in the middle of the screen on the top, you can see the speaker array way back there. So here we go.
This is a test of the emergency communication system. This is only a test.
So that wasn't a pre-recorded message or a live PA. That was actually our text-to-speech, something we put a ton of design and engineering work into, and we're very proud of. So I'm going to switch over here to Jermaine, and Jermaine's going to quickly step you through the software so you can see how the system is activated.
Thank you, John. So everyone can see my screen currently. This is the user interface for our web portal. The first thing you'll notice that is very simple, and we do that on purpose for the event that your users or dispatchers will have to use the system to send out an emergency if you're not already if we're not already tied into your email or text provider. This gives you a very simple and very quick interface. I'm going to alert the system with the emergency activation, which you see right here, the pre-scripted message. I'm going to select intruder lockdown. The notification is already preset in here. I press continue, and then it lets me know which recipients of the systems that we are tied to that will be notified in the system. And here in the background, you see all of our in our demo room, all our systems that are tied to the Alertus system. So we have the cable TV system, LED marquee, our fire alarm panels, our alert beacons, and desktop and laptop computers.
Intruder lockdown is in effect. Proceed to a secure location on the interior of the building, away from doors and windows. Await further instructions. An intruder lockdown is in effect. Proceed to a secure location on the interior of the building, away from doors and windows. Await further instructions.
So as John alluded to, me sending that notification out, the unified message, everything that you saw along the screen as far as the cable TV, the desktop computer, that same message was heard in intelligible voice over the speaker system. That same message will be heard outside on your outdoor high-power speaker arrays.
I think one other thing to add, Jermaine, is you know, along with this graphical user interface, we also have a mobile app which you can activate the system from. Also, panic buttons you can activate the system from. Also, we can integrate with different sensors and different meters based on scenarios. We can activate the system, so it's extremely robust and versatile. And I think one of the key points is it's net-centric and it's hosted locally at your facility. And lastly, we also integrate with a lot of your personal recipient text, email alerting, so you wouldn't have to change that. We partner with most of the companies out there. So, kind of in summary, one-button solution, outdoor mass notification, indoor mass notification, integration with personal recipient. It truly is. It really can activate every single unit. So now I think we'll go over to Jamie. And Jamie, do we have any questions or?
Thanks, John. So we'd now like to open up the floor for some Q&A. Again, feel free to type in your question into the chat box, and we'll be sure to get to as many of those as time allows for. I see that we have a number of questions that have already come in, so we'll go through some of those. John, our first question really talks about you know, how the outdoor notification system is used. Question being, does Alertus's outdoor notification solution allow for sending the same message over outdoor speakers that an organization might send over something like, say, a PA system, the alert beacon, digital signage displays, that type of thing?
Yes. So basically, I think really one of the areas where Alertus really shines, and I feel that we're the best in the market, is integrating with different technologies. And one of our goals when we visit a facility or a college or a military base is to really leverage your existing infrastructure. So if you already have other digital displays and other speakers and things like that, our first goal is going to be to reuse those because it's going to save you money. And in the long run, you know, I think you'll be a happy customer. And but also, you know, as I mentioned during the presentation, you're going to have the exact same emergency alert across your entire facility, hitting each of these devices, and it's pretty great when you see it. It's pretty impressive. So.
Now, sort of expanding on that, does the outdoor notification system require something like the alert beacon to set it off? This particular individual says that their organization does not use alert beacons currently, but they do utilize the Alertus desktop notification.
Yes, the interface with the outdoor high-powered speaker array, which is the technical term for the outdoor speaker, interfaces with the alert beacon because that's how the alert beacon communicates with the server application. But the beacon comes with the speaker array when you purchase the array, so you wouldn't have to already have one. It would be included in your price.
Now, John, can you speak to some of the challenges that might be associated with outdoor notification more generally?
Sure, yeah. So basically, when we talk about outdoor mass notification system designs, there's a whole spectrum of units that you can buy. If you think about one end of the spectrum, it's sort of this just loud siren tone. Maybe we just saw them on World War II movies, or maybe a tsunami warning, and that's one end of the spectrum. And if you look all the way down the other end of the spectrum, you can have sort of hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands of smaller low-power speakers around the facility, giving the alert. And there are strengths and weaknesses to both of those strategies. The siren-only high-power solution, most of them don't give very good clear voice. Secondly, you end up with a tremendous amount of acoustic shadowing zones and different areas where you cannot hear the system. So, and really those are designed for one type of alert. It's either a tsunami or not a tsunami. Either it's a tornado or not a tornado. But in a college, you're going to have a multitude of threats. In a refinery or a military base, you're going to have a multitude of threats. So where we fit is right in the middle of that spectrum between the hundreds of speakers and the single high power speaker. And we tried to really use just enough speakers to cover your area, not too many that you're going to have to, 10 years from now, you're going to have to maintain all those systems, but not too few that you're not going to have the proper coverage area. So I'd say the biggest obstacle is making sure that we provide customers with the optimal sound coverage, but not too much sound coverage and not too little sound coverage.
Excellent. Next question is really pertaining to some of the different factors that come into play depending on where a speaker might be placed, how it's oriented. So can you speak to some of the best practices that organizations should keep in mind as they're evaluating their outdoor speaker placement?
Sure, yeah. When we do the designs, it's all the first design we come up with is usually just theoretical. We say theoretically, if you put these speakers here, it's going to sound great throughout campus. We're going to have minimal echo, minimal shadow zones, things like that. But then there's the reality of it. Sometimes you'll try to use a building mount, which is one of our options, and someone will come along and say, hey, there's a historical concern here. So then we have to sort of adjust the location of where the speaker is. And what we'll do is we'll use, as you saw in the slides, the directionality of these speakers to project into some areas and then not into other areas to reduce that multiple arrival of sound. But then we'll also use pole mounts. So pole mounts are great because you maybe need to cover a field or a certain area where there isn't a building. But then some facilities, to get the approval to sink a new pole can be cumbersome. So we will work with the customer to continually go through iteration after iteration after iteration, move the speakers around until we really find something that's not only acoustically a good solution, but also politically and aesthetically a good solution for the campus.
Our next question sort of expands on the topic of text-to-speech, but gets into more of the different tones and notifications that can be used through an outdoor speaker. This particular individual says, I'm considering using a siren tone for my outdoor design. What are the pros and cons of going with a siren and voice system like Alertus versus a system that only emits a tone or a sound?
Sure, that's a great question. I sort of touched on this earlier. There are sort of legacy systems out there, and sort of still even ones maybe along Alley and some areas where there's tsunami concerns, where that is useful. You know, just using a siren tone is fine. And one of the biggest problem with that is there is a tremendous amount of education and political and outreach that's necessary to educate everyone what exactly that siren tone means. If I walk onto a campus and I hear just a siren tone going off, I'm not going to know what that means because I'm a guest. I didn't learn that at orientation because I don't go to school, or maybe I was supposed to go to orientation. I didn't go. I don't think I went to mine when I was in college, and so it's absolutely critical, my personal opinion, to not only have the siren tone but also have that clear voice message indicating what the alert is, not only what the emergency is, but what you have to do. The message may say, there is a shooter on campus. Okay, that's the alert. We know what's going on. What do I do? You seek shelter immediately. So there's the informed component of the message. And now there are some refineries that will have sort of a single tone will be the evacuation, a second tone will be the shelter in place, a third different tone will be sort of the all clear, and that's fine. It works to a certain extent, but I really am a big proponent of adding that voice component. So,
our next question talks about the integration of a public address system. The question is, we have a PA system and existing outdoor speakers. What can we do to sync these two notification modalities?
Sure, yeah, there's several options. As I said, we do want to leverage existing technology as much as possible. So the good news is we do have a module that can integrate with most public address systems. Basically, it's just a line level audio that can be input into the PA system, as well as a relay to signal that the PA is about to be overridden. Of course, that it requires that the PA allows itself to be overtaken. And secondly, we can also take fault data back from those systems. And by providing our text-to-speech module in each of these interfaces, it then ties them all together into one unified mass notification system through the Alertus server application. So the downside of that is again, the PA doesn't always allow for it to be overridden. Also, one of the biggest differences between a public address system and an emergency communication system is one, monitoring. So you want to have the constant monitoring of each of the end nodes and the components, and two, battery backup. You want to make sure that your system has battery backup in the event that you lose power. So there are pros and cons of using existing PA. Usually is a good first step, and then over time you can integrate alerting beacons and our text-to-speech modules in different areas where you don't cover. So I would say step one, we would propose overriding and integrating your existing technology. Then maybe over time, as budgets come along, we can start cover gaps inside the buildings and outside with alerting beacons and text-to-speech modules. Yep.
Thinking about the sound range that can come from some of these speaker options, how far does the sound travel when you're using a system like Alertus' high-power speaker array, and what factors come into play in terms of limiting how far that sound might travel?
Sure, it's going to depend on which model number we use. So we have the model for the outdoor system is the HPSA, so high power speaker array, and we start at 300 watts and we go all the way up to 2400 watts. So let's say the HPSA 600 at 3 meters is about 109 decibels. So theoretically, out to about a half mile, if there's nothing in between there and the speaker, you can potentially hear it. Now that's just really, again, theoretical. In between where that person is and where the speaker is, there's going to be wind, there's going to be trees. There's going to be atmospheric absorption. There's going to be absorption in sort of grass. If there's a cement, the sound will travel a little further. So that's where our acoustic designs really come into play. We put all those variables into there so that you will have an idea of the exact coverage that you're going to have. It's not 100% perfect because you know, the wind could totally just change the other way, you know. But we try to over-engineer it so that you'll have the necessary coverage. So.
Now, John, earlier you were talking about the battery backup availability with our outdoor speakers. If there is a problem with outdoor speaker batteries, or if a component of the system fails, how would the individual or the organization know that or be notified of that?
Sure. Okay, so inside the electronics cabinet, the components are constantly monitored. Basically, there's a program that runs in a loop and checks each of those. And it's configurable when it sends you an alert. The out of the box it'll check 4 times. It'll send you a fault 4 times a day, but we can bring that down to seconds, depending on the customer. And it'll throw a fault, and the fault will go back to the Alertus server, and then the server application will send the administrator an email, and it will send them a pop-up depending on how you configure it, and it will let you know immediately that there's a fault at the system. Then inside the cabinet we have a digital display where you can run a test diagnostic on it. It'll tell you, okay, the amplifier failed or the charger failed, so that sort of thing. So again, that's one of the biggest differentiators between sort of a PA system versus an emergency communication system is the monitoring. So.
Excellent. Thank you, John. It looks like we've covered all of our questions at this time. Very quickly, I would like to direct everyone's attention to a number of upcoming webinars that we have scheduled. Our next webinar is slated for May, and it will focus on our text-to-speech functionality, again tying in with some of the options that John was speaking to today. In June and July, we also have webinars focusing on emergency mass notification integration, and then again in July, a product-specific focus on our USB panic button. And finally, in August, we'll have another webinar focusing on the Alertus app notification functionality. If you'd like additional information, or if you would like to register for any of these webinars, you can do so on our website, www.alertus.com/Alertus webinar series. And again, I would just like to remind folks sitting in on our webinar today that this webinar is being recorded. If you would like a copy of the video, please feel free to email us at marketing@alertus.com. And finally, you can find additional information on our outdoor notification system, as well as the Alertus system in general, on our website, www.alertus.com. We'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Jim.